Hi there. I want to talk to you today about going no contact with a narcissistic mother. It is always a personal choice whether, when, if to go no contact. I have gone no contact with my mother, and what happened with me and what happens with a lot of women is that once you start healing, you can simply no longer tolerate the way things are. It's just no longer aligned with how you want to go through your life. You're finding that it is stalling your healing or keeping you stuck, or you'll make two steps forward and then you'll visit your mother and you'll be two steps back. So it's like grinding your wheels. You just can't make any forward movement while your mother is in your life. She is that detrimental to your mental health and well-being. And that was the case for me. And I was one of those women who went my whole life, decades and decades, trying everything I could to make things work with my mother, of course, being conditioned by her to live to please her. So to feel as though if she wasn't happy, I might die. I had to do everything I could to get back in her good books. So that always meant being the one to make the repair, even though I wasn't the one who broke things, so to speak. So generally, her modus operandi was if I ever did anything she didn't like, especially saying no to something, which would take everything I had, as you can imagine, the courage it would take as the daughter of a narcissist to put even a small boundary up. But if I ever did that, she would disown me. And she disowned me many times. And then what would happen is some time would go by, and then she would just come back to me as if nothing happened. And I was expected to simply drop everything. And of course I did, because I was so relieved to be back in her good books, essentially, that I was quite happy to just drop everything at the time. That felt very safe to me at the time. Um, but what happened is I got sober and I began to live in a way where I was looking at things very honestly, including myself. And I was doing my best to live authentically and to tell the truth in all areas and so on. And I just could not line up anymore. This dynamic of us, her disowning me if I ever stood up for myself or said no to something that she wanted from me, and then me just accepting her back without any accountability as soon as she decided that she would talk to me again or that I was back in her good books. And so what happened was after I got sober and she did the disowning, I decided when she came back to demand accountability. So when she came back to me expecting me to drop everything, I refused. I don't remember exactly what I said. I was probably in a blackout because of the courage it took. But and when I say a blackout, I don't mean a drunk blackout, obviously. I mean a figurative blackout where I was in such shock that I was actually doing things differently and standing up to her that I really can't remember what I said or did exactly, but it was changing the dynamic essentially. I was doing the incredibly courageous work of changing a lifelong dynamic between us. And I just would not accept the old pattern of yeah, I'm gonna let it go. Let's just carry on as if nothing happened. I somehow just said, this is not okay with me. You have to take accountability for this. You don't have to apologize, but you have to do something to repair this. I'm not just gonna let it go. And of course, what happened there is that she didn't apologize or take accountability. It just kind of went on as sort of a silent treatment, or just the no contact just continued because I refused to do the repair. And then, of course, when this happens, so this happens a lot where you are fooled into believing that you have initiated the no contact when in fact, it's really your mother who has done it by refusing to take accountability. That was the case for me anyway. And obviously, it's not always the case, but just sometimes it can be the case. So I'm just encouraging you to check in with the conditioning because we are so conditioned to think we are always responsible. Just check in and see, maybe you're not even the one who really initiated the no contact. That was how it was for me. And so the no contact continued because I refused to fulfill the pattern. I refused to fulfill my role. I was breaking patterns now. I was breaking cycles. I was a new person, all of that. And of course, didn't go well with my mother. So what happens is that then the flying monkeys come in, and you can expect this too if you decide to go no contact. So the flying monkeys are people in your family or friends, could be anyone really, but someone who has been dispatched by the narcissist, either because the narcissist explicitly told them to go out and get you, or because they have taken that role on themselves, that it's their job to go and bring you back into the fold, maybe to get your mother off their back, to stop hearing about it. They're desperate to get the family dynamic back the way it was because they're afraid of growth and change, just like your mother is. And so that person for me was my aunt. It was my mother's sister. And I remember too, it was the sobriety that helped me to see it. What the sobriety did for me was really clear my head and open my eyes to all these things that were happening that I refused to see because I had that little girl inside me operating by survival, like trying to survive this dynamic. And so refusing to see the truth of what was going on, just going along with things, trusting people I shouldn't have trusted, such as my aunt. And those eyes being opened, being on the phone with her and hearing her say the things that she had probably said many times before when my mother and I had any issues, and that is, why can't you just fall into line like you always have? Why can't you just do what your mother wants? And even though it wasn't those words, it may as well have been. And you probably know what I'm talking about, where there is no concern for how you feel. There is no curiosity about why you might be in this situation. What might your mother have done? How do you feel, Laura? What can I do for you? None of that. It is just, I am here to force you to get back into the role that we all want you to be in because this is too uncomfortable for us and we don't like it. And so I remember being on the phone with her and just having the realization dawn on me that this woman is not on my side. This woman that I've known my whole life and loved and trusted is not on my side, and I need to protect myself from her. And so I just remember getting very quiet and sort of saying, uh-huh, and then just getting off the phone and realizing I am not going to share anything with that person again. Nothing that could be used against me, nothing intimate, no, not nothing about my mother. And that just changed everything. So this is how you see that you deciding to go no contact with your mother, you might be going up against a whole family system. In fact, it's very likely that you will be. So you want to be prepared for the backlash, not only from your mother, but from the people that she might send or who might take it upon themselves to intrude upon your life and try to get you to break the promise that you've made to yourself to respect yourself and to stand up for yourself and to break the pattern that has kept you stuck for so long. And another thing you want to be mindful of is that guilt is going to be really big when you go no contact, or if you decide to go no contact. And you're going to feel like you're doing something wrong. You're going to feel sometimes overwhelming feelings of being bad or being just doing something that you shouldn't be doing. And the guilt is going to come on you in a way that can be very hard to manage. And this is one of the number one things I hear from the women I work with when they set a boundary or go no contact with their mother is that the guilt is too much. I honestly can't stand it. It's like they're coming out of their skin. And this, of course, is a nervous system response, and it is another conditioned response because your mother has always used guilt against you. So if you listen to me, watch this channel, you might know that already. But if you don't, I want to tell you that guilt is not a sign that you've done anything wrong. And self-help, including Brene Brown, will tell you that. But that's actually not true for the daughter of a narcissistic mother. Guilt is not a sign that you have compromised yourself. In fact, it's the opposite. Guilt is the sign that you are doing something for yourself that you've always been punished for. And your mother used the guilt to make you easier to control, to get what she wanted, to get you to come back without her having to do anything to repair. You would come crawling back to her, which is something that she loves more than anything. A narcissist loves to see somebody else grovel to win them back. That makes them feel really good. That gives them the supply they need because it makes them feel like they win and you lose. And that is what they are always after. So, what's going on is that there's nothing wrong with feeling guilty. One thing is that you want to know why you're feeling guilty. You want to know that the source of the guilt is actually not true, really. Like you don't feel guilty because you've done anything wrong. You feel guilty because you've been conditioned to do so because your mother benefited from that. So that's one thing that can help, but that's logical, and logic doesn't always come down to the level of the body. So you're going to continue to feel the guilt even though you know why you're feeling it. It doesn't make it go away. And you don't want to push the guilt away because as soon as we try to resist something, it's going to persist. That is with emotions, that is with physical pain, that is with anything that we resist. It's just going to hang on. So you want to instead allow yourself to feel the guilt and just soothe yourself through it because it can be overwhelming. And if you're overwhelmed by the feeling, you are going to do whatever it takes to get rid of it. And that often means dropping the boundary. And that's the last thing you want to do because that's going to ruin all your hard work and healing so far. And we want to keep moving forward. Even though healing is not linear, it does go up and down. We want to help it as much as we can. And if no contact is the way to do that for you, then you want to soothe yourself through negative emotions instead of taking a short-term step to relieve the emotion, which would be dropping the boundary. Instead, you want to feel the short-term pain of the guilt or whatever it is and experience the long-term gain of having the courage to stand up for yourself this way. And the long-term gain is huge. It is having an authentic life, creating the life that you desire, staying in tune with what you want, setting good boundaries for yourself, attracting in people who have your back, who have your needs in mind, who want to help you fulfill your needs and desires and have you help them with theirs too, to have a give and take and all of that. That good stuff is ahead of you, but only if you can have the courage in the short term to stick to your guns, to keep those promises to yourself. And then what does no contact look like exactly? Well, for me, no contact is exactly what it sounds like. It's absolutely no contact at all. And that means blocking on the email and the phone. And you don't do this, and I didn't do this as any form of punishment or cruelty toward the mother. It's not about her, it's about you and protecting yourself. And I needed to protect myself, especially on the email, because that's what she would use the most against me. And so, if you're still healing the nervous system, an email from your mother can be incredibly dysregulating. It can set you back quite a bit. And that's what it was doing for me. So, I decided I would block her on the email. And when you do that, it will go to spam. And so, you have 30 days to look at it if you want to check spam and find the message. But you don't have to be blindsided by it right away. You can prepare yourself and then go into the spam and find it if you want to. But true no contact would be not even going into the spam, blocking the phone and not listening to the voicemail because it'll go to voicemail when you block someone. Don't listen to the voicemail message, but that might take a little bit of time. And for me, it did. I had to do baby steps, and maybe you will too. Like first you block, then I was checking the messages before the 30 days was up while they were in spam, and then gradually I stopped doing that. But you will start to see as your adult begins to take over from the inner child, you will start to see that in the messages, her motivations are not what you had thought they were. It's not what your inner child had tricked you to believe that they were. So they're not care, they're not concern. They're usually things that are to plant doubt in you, to play with your mind, to give her the upper hand, and so on. And if you really look with those adult eyes, you will likely see that. And just an example for me is that my mother would send me messages with like videos or articles about personality types and how she thinks I'm this personality type. And I've always been misunderstood and all of that stuff. So she really knew how to push my buttons because it's like, yeah, I do feel misunderstood. When in reality, I feel misunderstood because I'm the daughter of a narcissist and I've always felt alone in the world. Of course, she's the reason for that. And then the other part was, oh, thinking that she has the care and concern for me to be interested in my personality and how things might be impacting me and so on. When really I looked at it again with new eyes and saw that no, she's playing with my head. She's trying to make me believe that there's something wrong with me, and that's why we're not getting along. And another one is when she asked to go to therapy with me, which I did end up doing, by the way, and that was the last contact I had with her. But she said, I want to go to therapy so we can figure out how we found ourselves in this place where we're at. And you realize what that is. That is a total lack of accountability. And I was so grateful at the time to have what I saw as an olive branch reach out to me. But no, this is more mind games. This is a lack of accountability. The place where we're at, it is not accurate. It's the place you put us in. How can you do better? And you might find that your mother will send you gifts or cards. This is a really common one. I also don't want you to fall for that. No contact means not returning to sender because that is a form of contact. No contact means not opening it, just getting rid of it, throwing it in the garbage, throwing it in the recycling, not even looking at it. That is no contact because again, when you open it, it will play with your mind. It's designed to play with your mind. You'll notice that the card or the gift is never really something that you want because she doesn't care what you want. It's all about her playing with your mind or presenting herself in a certain way. It might be to create an image if she thinks other people are going to hear about it, all of that kind of stuff. So just get rid of the gift. And the main thing with no contact is for you to work on not caring whether you are the bad person in her eyes, not not caring, or if you do care, not allowing your actions to be dictated by how much you care while you continue to work on not caring. But, not caring about what other people think of you. If they think you're a bad daughter, let them think that. Like that is none of your business. It's not your business to convince other people that you are hard done by, that you had no choice, that you can find a support group for that of other people who understand, or you can work with a coach like me. You can find a therapist who has been through this stuff as well. Be careful with that one. Make sure they've been through it and they understand it, and those are hard to come by. Don't try to tell people in your family, for instance, all the reasons why you are having to go no contact with your mother, because that is really like going to an empty well for water. It's not there. What you need is not there. The understanding that you're looking for is not there. You must give that to yourself. That is what we're doing now. We're learning to parent ourselves. We're freeing ourselves from the binds of that non-parenting, that anti-parenting, and we are going to become our own good parent. And that means validating yourself. That means not looking outside of yourself for that validation. It is knowing that this is something I need to do for myself. People are going to talk. The work here is for me to understand that it's none of my business what other people think of me. It is more important what I think of myself. And the last thing I want to say is that people ask me, do I tell her that I've gone no contact? And my question is, well, first of all, I would say that that's a very personal decision. But my question would be, what benefit is that to you? I think a lot of us think we need to have that closure of making that declaration. But the fact is, there is no closure with this. There will be no closure. The closure, not from outside of you anyway, the closure is going to come from within you when you decide that this is the way it has to be. This is the only way for me to move forward. That is your closure. And it's nothing to do with her. She can't give you anything. She never has. And the work also is to accept and grieve the fact that she couldn't or wouldn't give you what you needed, and she never will. That all that time you spent banging your head against a wall, trying to have a relationship with her, trying to be good enough, trying to do or say the right thing to make her finally understand was futile, that it was never going to work and it never will. It doesn't matter what you do or say. You could be the most perfect person in the world, which maybe you are. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to win you love from someone who doesn't know how to love. It's not going to win you acceptance from someone who only wants you to lose, from someone who will throw you under the bus to save their own skin and do it happily, who will actually derive pleasure or satisfaction from that. And that is the hard truth about your mother. She, I'm sorry to say, probably doesn't love you like a mother should. And I will ask people, how do you know your mother loves you? If you're saying, I know she loves me, but I say, how do you know she loves you? And they'll be searching their mind, like, oh, because she said it a couple times. That's not love. Love is something that you feel. Love is something that is shown. It is not just something that is assumed because this person is your mother. Lots of mothers, lots of fathers, lots of family members are not loving and they don't love you. And that's a fact. And that's a hard truth to accept, but it is important to accept in order to be able to hold the no contact and understand in your own mind and body why you're doing it. And so my argument is that there's very little benefit, if any, to you of from telling your mother with a letter or with a message that you are going no contact. With a narcissist, everything you say can and will be used against you. And so if you do decide to tell her that you're going no contact, do not say anything more. Do not give an explanation. Uh, there is nothing you can say that will make her understand. You want to ask yourself, is this my little girl, hoping that she'll respond, hoping that she'll try to make it better? Because that is something that can be very insidious. You might feel like you're in your adult, but that little girl is still there with that false hope that one day I can finally do something to make my mother see me. Maybe this will be it. So you want to dig deep and ask yourself, what's the real reason I want to send a letter or make a final declaration that I am no longer in contact with you? To me, no contact is just stop contact. That's it. It's done. And then you can always change your mind later. You can adjust. You don't actually need to make that declaration because you might change your mind later. You might decide that you can have contact after you've done a healing for a certain amount of time. Like, who knows? We just want to maybe get away from that, having to control the outcome, having to know how it's going to be for the rest of my life. And that's one of the things that keeps daughters of narcissistic mothers really fretful about this no contact decision, because you think it's this one finality that's going to last the rest of your life. But in reality, it is just a day-to-day thing. And I remember in my recovery program, one day at a time was a big slogan. And that is our life. That is life. It really is lived one day at a time. And so we can reassess any of our decisions, especially around no contact, and readjust whenever we want. But it's just learning as you're healing that you have the freedom to do that. You are not stuck with the decision you made once. You can revisit it. So that could be part of the healing too. Yeah, with no contact, I would say no contact is no contact. If you are contacting her to tell her you're going no contact, that's actually a form of contact. And without starting to sound like who's on first, uh, I believe that just cutting it off is the way to go, and tending to yourself and the difficult feelings you're going to be managing after you do that, especially the feelings of guilt. And then to expect the flying monkeys, not to discuss her with them, decide what level of contact you're going to have with those people, and so on. And then there's also the social stigma of no contact that you're going to be managing as well. So be very careful who you tell. You do not have to tell anyone about your no contact. Again, as daughters of narcissistic mothers or, childhood trauma survivors in general, we feel like we have to explain ourselves all the time, and you really don't. Just because someone asks you a question doesn't mean you have to answer it. So if someone asks you about your parents, you can be very vague. For me, I just say, "Oh, yeah, they live in Toronto. I live in Florida. Oh, yeah, they're divorced." I just kind of answer with as little information as possible and then get on to the next topic because I don't owe anybody anything. And most of the time, these people are just kind of making small talk anyway. And so you don't owe them that. You want to have a certain depth, a certain intimacy and connection with someone, and a certain level of trust, which they have to earn before you're going to be telling them about your no contact situation. You want to make sure and keep yourself safe through that. So those are my comments about no contact. I hope they are helpful to you. I usually post on Fridays. I'm putting this up a day early because I'm off to Toronto, which is my hometown, to see Game 6 of the World Series. I'm super excited. So go Jays, go. And I look forward to talking to you next week. And please do subscribe if you have found this helpful, and even share it if you think someone will benefit from it.